Greetings, everyone. This is Reverend Dr. Mayaz today with this beautiful sister, Callette Avery. She's going to share her life experiences with us through her successfully awakened process to the best of her ability. I'm keeping it real. Hello.
Hello there.
You have a beautiful, shining, bright light on your forehead, which is just enchanting.
Well, you never know what's going to come through. So I'm feeling the energies are really beautiful right now.
Exactly. I love it. I can't wait to hear your story.
Well, I was a little nervous at first about this, but you know what? Let's just go with it.
I trust you completely to share whatever you like. Um, we were discussing previously, you were about the same age. We're moms. We're here living the life and doing our best to help others through their processes in life to ease the process as best as we can. And I believe you had some interest in that area with sharing with
Sure.
others, correct?
Yes. Um, I'm not really sure where you want me to begin. I guess I could start from when I was a little girl. Um, I have lived quite an interesting life so far out of my 46 years in this lifetime. Um, I've always been someone that's wanted to help and heal people. I never understood what exactly it was I was doing, but I was constantly helping people. If animals, if my brother or somebody was ripping a tree branch down, it would upset me, and I didn't understand why. But I guess, I mean, I obviously know now that it has feelings and it has life also. And um, I was a very sensitive kid, and I was not always encouraged to elaborate on that because I would see spirits and I would talk to spirits a lot when I was young. My mom never said I couldn't, but she never encouraged me. So I was a little bit older, and then she would tell me about, oh, you used to talk about things when you were younger and you had an imaginary friend. And um, I was brought up in a very, very strict Catholic background. My
Okay.
my entire family is Catholic, um, and have very high ties with those in charge of the religion, if that's what you want to call it. For me personally, I don't feel that it is that. I feel it's more nefarious, but that's okay. I had my great grandfather was a very successful businessman and philanthropist. And he was adopted by a Catholic priest when he was very young. So he was indoctrinated into that religion ever since he was a little boy. And he made sure that his family growing up, he built his family and his legacy, that we were all that way as well. And so that's a huge, huge thing for my life. And ever since I was a little girl, I never resonated with it. I always questioned things, but I was always pushed down, told that that is the way. And the typical Catholic guilt trip. They tell you and guilt you and make you feel like you're a sinner, and then you have to go to confession. And I just never understood that. And being a sensitive kid, I struggled trying to figure out who I was, because I really feel like because of that, and no offense to my parents, they did the best they could. That's what they were brought up and programmed to be. I just knew I had to do something. And my great grandfather, like I was saying in the past, I bring this up just to kind of give you some background of where I'm coming from. I My great grandfather met with several of the popes, um, had meetings with them, had some pretty successful business ties with them. The town that I live in here in Ohio, My family is very well known and is still very influential with the Catholic religion when it comes to having uh, money come into this town due to the religion. And my kids actually used to go to the Catholic schools. They were brought up in it until 3 years ago when I went through a major transformation and started finding out a lot of things about the religion. And because I didn't really agree or resonate with it to begin with, I finally found the strength to break free from it. And it was extremely difficult because I have been shunned. I have people in my family that no longer talk to me. But I found my strength. And in that strength is where I am today, because I found out who I really am. And I'm using that goddess warrior energy for the good of all now. Standing in my truth, standing in my power, and doing everything I possibly can to help others. So um, I'm not sure if you have a question, but that's just kind of a little background of me.
I'm smiling so big right now. You can't see it because we had to use the background image due to the lighting issues, we'll say, that happened when we're recording. But I'm astonished because I had no idea of any of that when we spoke previously before we started recording. And I just wonder, how did you get through your visions and things as a child with someone telling you it's an imaginary thing when you knew it was real and you could hear them very clearly? Like, was that your first awakening lesson, or like, I'm just
It,
curious.
yeah, it was very painful because I I had a great upbringing. I came from a very high class family, but I was unhappy. You know, I was always taught respect others no matter who they are, no matter what class they are, no matter what color they are, no matter what religion they are. I had my mom's true angelic upbringing for that, but I also had the this is your faith and you do not go out of your faith. So having these visions and seeing these spirits, I kept it to myself. And
Oh,
it made me a very, very insecure kid. I was not a happy child. Family was everything to me, and I always felt like I owed other people something, and it made me feel good about myself to help others. But it was not helping myself. So, and in turn, I was not a happy kid. And going into my teenage years, it was absolutely horrible. I actually ended up trying to commit suicide one time because I just didn't know who I was. I was battling with what I was feeling spiritually and what I was being told by my family, controlling the situation. And then I didn't know any better. I
mm-hmm.
had no idea that I could stand in my own power. And I honestly didn't feel like I could at that time. Um, and it the guilt, like I said, the Catholic guilt, the family they would put a guilt on you if you tried to turn the other way. So when I actually made that huge move and pulled my kids out of the school system and put them in a public school system, we moved to the other side of town. um, that was really, really huge. So
Well, I'm so glad you made it.
yeah, me too.
So glad
I
you made it. So I'm just trying to figure out how to ask this question
Sure.
properly here. You grew up in a Catholic religious household, but
Yeah.
you were very spiritually connected. But why wouldn't those two match? You would think that that would be like, wow, there's a prophet in the house. No, I don't know that much about it. Sorry. I had to learn everything the hard way myself. So,
um my dad was always working. My mom stayed home and raised my brother and I. So she was, I would say she's on the spiritual side too, but she's very programmed. She's very faithful to her religion. But in a way, me coming out and speaking what I am expressing now, talking about synchronicities and telling her about number sequences, and um, she's actually open to that now. So it was hard. It was hard to try to, I battled with my family as far as having one side. I felt like one side I knew who I was, kind of in a way, and the other side I was following orders because that's what you did. You never um, went against what your parents said. That would be disrespectful, So,
Exactly.
and I never wanted to ever be disrespectful to them, but I also knew I wasn't being true to myself. So it wasn't until after I moved out and got married that I felt like I could kind of be myself a little more.
Mm.
Um, and then kind of just went from there, which is another interesting story, how that all ended up happening. So,
I'm all ears.
well, my husband, he's my ex now, but he had a lot to do with it. My parents are still married to this day, married for almost 53 years. And longevity in my family, as far as marriages go, is very appreciated. There's not very many divorces in our family, only a few, at least on my mom, on my mom's side, which the influential family I'm speaking of. So my husband and I don't like to say ex because I just find that very negative. So I will tell you his name is Travis.
Okay.
Travis and I went to school together. We grew up together. We became boyfriend and girlfriend in second grade. So we were elementary sweethearts. And then middle school, nothing happened. High school, we dated off and on. The day of our graduation, we decided to make it official and continue to date each other. 3 years out of high school, we went to college. After 3 years, we got married. Went through a lot of struggles. He came from one side of the tracks, I was from the other, which was the same with my mom and my dad. My mom came from the rich side of the tracks, and my dad came from the poor side of the tracks. But that didn't matter to me because money was not an issue. I just wanted somebody who was going to be real and treat me good, and I had that. But we had problems in our marriage. We had a lot of struggles. I had a lot of medical issues during our marriage, and he stuck by me through all of them. We lost 4 babies, and we were finally blessed to have 2. During one of my miscarriages, I will never forget, this nun came into my room. It was right before my D&C to remove the baby that was already dead. She offered communion, and I refused it. And my mom about had a shit fit. She
Oh
was
boy.
like, you never, ever refuse communion. Well, I said, why should I? I was mad. I was upset. This was my second, I think it was my second miscarriage. And she's like, Callette, you're going to go to hell for that. And I was like, how am I going to go to hell? I'm already living hell. I've just lost my second baby.
Aw.
So at that point, my husband told my mom, I cannot see her being so faithful as she has been, to lose her faith now. So he decided to join the Catholic religion also.
Oh
I
wow.
never pressured. I never brought it up to him. I never did any of that. That was his choosing. So I sponsored him. He became Catholic. We went through a lot of stuff together in that time while we were continuing to try to conceive again. And I actually had very, very complicated medical issues and almost didn't have my 2 boys that I have now. In the process of all of that happening, he also questioned why this religion makes you do or makes you feel like you have to do things a certain way. And I
Mhm.
said, this is why I never wanted you to join.
Okay.
So that's when we both started questioning more as a group together. And as we woke up and started doing research and listening to certain videos and certain people on the internet, we started realizing, holy shit, this is not, this isn't good, what's going on. And then we realized we had to do what we had to protect our boys.
Right.
In that process, we both have awakened, gone through major transformations, but I've had more time to spend um, working on myself. He's always been the provider. I've been the one raising the boys. So in that time, I've changed. And like I said, we've had some issues with our marriage. And for about 4 years now, things have not been right. And I have struggled for 4 years trying to figure out how I was going to make this work or not work and be on my own and be a single mom. And back in May, I finally had well, it was a little before that, but May was a huge transformation month for me. Um, I had my galactic family come forth and show themselves in the sky one night when I was stargazing, and they talked to me telepathically and told me how proud they are of all of us and the changes and the work that we're doing to ourselves. So that's when I knew I had to continue to work just as hard on myself, and that it's okay because I have to do what's best for me. And so in July, I made the final decision and we ended it. After 24 years of marriage, it was very painful and hard. Um, but it was necessary. I knew in order for me to continue with my journey and be happy, I had to do it. And I also knew it wasn't fair for me to continue to try to make things work out in a way that was not good for him as well. Um, so I want nothing but all happiness for him as I want for myself. And we actually have a very beautiful relationship right now. We do everything equally and together as a team for our boys. So we've also been raising our boys now since we left the Catholic religion um, for 3.5, 4 years ago, um, to think for themselves, but also do research. And what we share with them, what we learn, we share with them as well. Um, so it's actually worked out beautiful. As painful as it was, um, the journey has been actually very beautiful and transformative for me, um, because I can truly stand in my own power now and work on just me and continuing to flourish and help others.
That is so beautiful. Thank you for sharing all that.
Yeah,
Um, I honor you in your strength as a woman to get through all that, because just the thought of being ripped apart by your own spirit and your family belief systems at the same time of trying to not commit suicide and give up hope completely was a pretty big battle, and you made it.
yeah.
Look at this.
Wasn't easy. There's a lot of in between stuff there, but I mean, the bottom line is I made it.
Exactly, you made it. And
Yeah,
now it's New Year's Eve. 2020 is like in a couple hours, and we're all like, what? We did it? How did we get
yeah,
here? Like, there's so many stories and oceans of airwaves of energetic blessings that we can tap into if we can just keep each other afloat long enough to receive it, you know?
right.
I hate it that you didn't have that support when you were a child, and most of us didn't, because you don't understand when you're hearing things from a place that other people tell you isn't possible, but you know what you see is right in front of you, and you're not
Yeah,
crazy, and you're not um, having imaginary friends. It's very real,
right.
and you're like, well, if I can see you as clearly as I can see this person, how am I supposed to know which one to listen to, right?
That's right.
So
Absolutely.
if we could help children um, understand that level of telepathic communication when they're young, imagine how much pain we can alleviate for their life just by
Yeah,
letting them know, hey, it's okay if you're hearing intuitive messages coming to you. There's a reason for that. and
absolutely.
and how do you tap into that, and how do you nurture it so that it doesn't become used against you to the point of suicide? Because I think that's how we lose a lot of our children,
Yeah.
to
And I'm going
depression.
to do everything possible to make sure that doesn't happen. Anyone that I can help. I've always, from the moment my kids were born, I've always been very supportive. They're very intuitive. Very. Um, my one son and I are very telepathic together. I've they've seen things, they witnessed things, and from the moment they could talk and tell me who they were seeing, I always encouraged it and I always supported it. And my one son, my oldest son, he's 15 right now. He would see the little gnome people in the woods, in our woods,
Oh,
on our
wow.
property. And I remember three of their names. There were five total, but they used to travel with us in their own little airplane when we were flying to Florida for our vacations. And I would look out the window and say, oh, look, there they are. Even though I actually could not see them, that was something special, that connection between him and them. But
Hmm.
I supported it. And he still remembers. He doesn't see them anymore, but he still remembers them. And my younger son, who's 13, has a very special connection with dragons. So we call him Dragon Boy.
Okay.
And he has a lot of dragon energy, and he's very telepathic. Him and I are in sync with each other quite a bit. My older son, he's a teenager, so there's outside influences, but we are always talking to them about this stuff and supporting it, letting them know that when you hear something, you trust it. You always trust your instincts. And sometimes they get it and sometimes they don't. So I sometimes have a very difficult time coming up with the words to describe them so that they can understand it on a level. Just because I deal more with energy than in words. I can't say words sometimes. I literally cannot speak English, and it made me, as a kid, I would struggle with that and make me feel stupid.
Hmm.
And I struggled with that growing up all my entire life until now. Now I understand that I'm an energy worker and that's just how I communicate. And screw the rest of the system. If I can't communicate with you, you're just going to have to wait until I can, because that's
Yeah.
just how it is. And
Yeah.
that's where my power came from. No, finally realizing that, and supporting my kids and other kids, because I will talk to my kids, my son's friends. If I won't bring it up, but if they bring up anything, I will slowly plant little tidbits there and say, well, what do you think about this? Or what do you think about that? And then we'll get on the discussions about UFOs and things like that. And then the conversation is just absolutely beautiful because they're experiencing these things too, but they don't have the support system from home, so they know that they can come to me with support.
And that I love, because that was what we were discussing previously. I wanted to create a platform of different series of videos from people with similar experiences, just so that they know they're not alone. I mean, all of us that go through these things are put here for a purpose, and we can help each other just by listening to each
Yeah,
other and opening that doorway that we never had opened for us,
absolutely.
brought on this massive depression and all sorts of, what do you roadblocks in life that could have been avoided if only we had had one person who could
Yeah,
have understood our intellectual and telepathic connections as children. We
yeah,
wouldn't have been so confused. And when on one side of the street you're saying, but no, I love everyone and I feel this great love for all of you, but why do you always argue? Like, you can't ever find that happy place in between to say, can somebody please help me understand why I keep hearing messages that
exactly.
that feel like angels? telling me, it's okay, it's okay, they can't fight forever, don't worry, it's all right. You had to be born to them to help them learn how to stop fighting or whatever. And you know that as a child, these two people that you were born to are young and they were going through a lot of things, but they had no idea of how to communicate with a star seed child, because that's a whole different level of communication that previously was unheard of. And if
Yeah.
it was talked about, it was considered a something to be scared of instead of embracing.
Yeah.
And I guess when you were saying that whole thing about how you had to, what do you say, by invitation only to become a Catholic?
Hmm.
I've heard of that once before, but I never knew what it meant. A friend of mine, good friend of mine, was a Catholic member, and she said, "Oh, well, you have to go through this thing to be a member." And I was like, "Oh, well, I don't know. That sounds complicated. I just want to meet God and pray and feel good, like it's okay. I don't need to go through." But I never knew what it was. Is there like an initiation type thing, or is it like,
You have to go through classes. When you sponsor someone that wants to become Catholic, it's like a 6-month ordeal.
oh
They have
wow,
to go to a weekly class with your sponsor, and the priest is there, and you talk about certain parts of the religion, and you have to get baptized, and unless you've already been baptized before. But my husband had been baptized. He was brought up. My his mom um, was Catholic. She went to the same school as my family, but she couldn't stand the religion,
mm,
and she got out of it when she got married to my ex father-in-law. But he was Baptist, so she left the religion as soon as she got married, and they started their own journey. And so for my husband to want to become Catholic, that didn't fly very good.
okay,
His mom didn't, she didn't follow the religion anymore, and his dad didn't like the religion. And so there was some tension there. And I made it very clear that I did not initiate the whole thing. He chose it because I didn't want them thinking that I was trying to control him to do this. I wasn't. I never did, and I never would have. Um, so yeah, you have to go through a process, and then at Easter time, they have this big mass where you are initiated in. Um, they anoint you. You go through this different like there's baptism, first communion, reconciliation, all these sacraments that you have to go through. He had to go through all of those and during the mass, and then he became Catholic.
mm.
How it works.
Well,
So
thanks for explaining it. I
yeah,
wasn't sure. I was just like, wow. So most of the people that I meet that have said they were Catholic seem really like nice spiritual people. So I always, because obviously I didn't become a member and go through the whole initiation process, I wouldn't have known. But I always thought, well, they seem like nice people and free spirited, and you would never know that it was anything other than golden, you know? And
yeah,
I would think that's how you would want it to be, but it when you hear people trying to stop being a member of such organization, you hear catastrophic stories of depression and being
yeah,
thrown out and people don't speak to you anymore. It's like, why? Is it
yeah,
not the same spirit that we all pray to? Like, I don't quite understand it.
yeah.
Like, how did you bridge that gap between, I guess, where you were and becoming so spiritually enlightened and open minded and
I
intuitively
think
connected?
I think because I never resonated with it to begin with, and I just when I found out more truths about the religion
Uh huh.
and how it's a control system and how they pretty much control everything that's going on this planet right now, that it made it a lot easier to finally stand in my strength and just get the hell out of it. um, I didn't care about the actual religion getting repercussions from that because they can't touch me. It
Right.
was my family because, you know, my mom and dad didn't speak to me for over a month after we came to them one day and said, "Mom, you know, we're moving." And I did it in a way to not say this religion sucks. I don't like it. I don't resonate with it. I didn't throw it in their face. I was very, very careful how I planned it out. My mother-in-law at the time had medical issues and they were clear across the other side of town, and it was easier for us to just say, okay, we're moving to the other side of town to be near her and my brother-in-law at the time because he was having health issues, and I need to be there for them to help them. So that's how I started it out. And then my mom said, well, aren't you going to still be going to church? How are you going to get the boys to school? I said, they're not going there anymore. And she called me an atheist.
Oh
She
no.
said I was um, confused and the devil was part of my life because I've let the devil into my heart, and it just didn't go over very well. And then she cried and she didn't speak to me or my dad for a month. Then they realized, okay, if I want my children to be in my life, I have to talk to her. So they finally started talking to me again, and things got a lot better. I mean, things are good now, but um, when my mom pushes too much, I put a stop to it very kindly. And I just say, look, this is what I believe. And I don't disrespect them and their beliefs because if they choose to do that, that is their choice. I totally understand and respect it. But I also ask for the same respect for mine. So when I started telling her I'm on this spiritual journey and I can really truly be myself, and telling her that I, you know, talk about angels, and she's not against aliens.
Hmm.
I've seen them and I communicate with them, and she just doesn't believe that they're part of God in heaven. And I'm like, you realize we're all gods and goddesses?
Right.
She's trying to be open. She's really trying her hardest to relate somehow on my level. So when she says, "Oh, guess what? I've been waking up at 3:33 in the morning every single day," she's
Wow.
starting to get it. I mean, I
Yeah.
give her little tiny seeds of it, and I just let her talk. I don't bring it up. I let her bring it up, and then I elaborate once she brings it up. So very slowly she's coming around, but I'm not doing anything to influence. I want her to be on the journey that she's supposed to be on, and I respect it. But I'll tell you, it's been a very, very hard thing. But once I finally stood in it, it's been, I would say, the past 6 months have been really kick ass. Standing in my power, and no one can stop how I feel or how I believe because my truth is my truth, and she knows that now.
Right. And how do you do that? Do you meditate and bask in the
Thank
light every morning in your mind and then just
you.
expect your day to go well, or
Yes, I always set a as soon as I meditate quite a bit every day, several hours, and sometimes I work on energy. When I meditate, I work on energy and spreading that out throughout the universe. Other times I work specifically on just healing for people. Other times I just work on um, just the loving energy and being one with as above, so below. With light, we have dark, and the yin and the yang. I work on that. Um, but I do a lot of meditation during the day. But as soon as I wake up, I always set a gratitude intention for how my day is going to be. And in the middle of the day, I do that. And then before I go to bed.
beautiful. Okay, we had a brief pause. Wait a minute.